In India's capital, Delhi, 16-year-old Ifkhar Ahmed was alone and scared. It was September 1947. Muslims were being targeted in the larger-scale riots around the capital. The family he had been staying with had left the city and were afraid to return. Just a few weeks earlier, Ifkhar had joyfully watched the independence fireworks. He was Muslim and felt proud of being in India. "I never felt Pakistani, I always said I'm Indian." Ifkhar fled where he was staying and found sanctuary with a number of other fellow Muslims. They used horse carriages and barrels to barricade themselves inside safe houses, but these were frequently set alight by mobs trying to flush out Muslims. They decided to make their way to the great mosque in Delhi, the Jama Masjid, for the safety. It was raining continuously, Ifkhar remembers. There was not a soul around the streets. Not a fly. Bodies lay littered on the street, as if they were leaves from the trees. He then made what he describes as the biggest journey of his life. Members of his group had to walk through a Hindu area. In every doorway, there were 2 or 3 people holding knives and swords. They were dying to get us, he recalls. We dared not even look up at these men, as eye contact would have meant certain death. The Hindu men moved in. They picked up the young girls, says Ifkhar. It is the sound he can't forget. The screaming. Women were crying out. The young daughters were going. I cannot describe to you how bad it was and what the conditions of those mothers and fathers were. Tens of thousands of women were raped and abducted during this time by men of the other religion. All sides were perpetrators, all sides victims. Ifkhar carried on walking, looking straight ahead. He thought it was just a matter of time before he and the other Muslims he was traveling with were attacked. Yet the men and older women managed to get out. It was the most frightening moment of my life, he says. He made his way to the mosque, which was packed with people and families. But he only stayed one night as the group decided to move on. They journeyed to another refuge, which was even worse. It was almost like the whole of Delhi was there. It was the horrible women selling themselves for a piece of bread. Ifkhar had no money or food. He hadn't eaten in days. None of the refugees was willing to share food. He then heard of trains leaving for Pakistan. Many warned him not to go, saying the trains were being targeted by mobs. I don't care if I live or die, he thought. I'm going. He made it by train to Atri, a village in the Punjab, only a mile less from the new Indo-Pakistan border. The train stopped at the railway station, where people started cooking and setting up a temporary camp on the station platform. When another train arrived carrying soldiers from Pakistan's army, Ifkhar asked if he could travel with them, saying he was alone and had no luggage. They took him on board and hid him under the seat away from the officers. They fed me with dry biscuits and a cup of tea. It was the first food and drink he'd had in days. On arriving in Lahore after dark, he was told, "Son, this is Pakistan. This is your world. Do whatever you want to do." Ifkhar finally felt safe. Tiredness overcame him and he fell asleep on the platform. He awoke early in the morning feeling wet. The platform was full of people, but they were all dead. Children, women and men with terrible wounds, all cut up. The wet sensation against his skin was the blood. Ifkhar believes those people had come from the train he left at Atri and that the passengers had been killed very close to the border. The authorities had unloaded the bodies onto the platform while he slept. I used to think I would never reach Pakistan. I knew my death could be round the corner. So when I got to Lahore that morning and found all those dead bodies, I didn't worry about them, I worried about myself. He ran from the station and headed to the city. He was shocked by what he saw when he arrived. Lahore was all burnt. The complete town was burnt. That's what the Pakistanis did. They burnt the houses and people in them. India did it to us, but Pakistan did it to them. The same. It was tit for tat.